Shalom, Pastor Hartman, back at you with this truth. Giving all praises to Yahweh by Shem Yahushai by Shem Kakadash. I'm going to entitle this video, Cambridge Bible Interprets the Scriptures Correctly. Isaiah chapter 14. As you know, I go to when I do certain videos, I go to these interpreter Bibles or Bible commentary sites. And the first one I normally go to, it's normally on the right side at the top of the list. This is short and to the point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at, I really started at the second verse of Isaiah 14, but I said, let me start at the first verse and then go to the second verse. And then I may jump around to some other verses in the same chapter, Isaiah 14. So, okay, so this is Cambridge Bible for Schools and Colleges. It says the immediate result, by the way, this is Isaiah 14:1, for Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. So when everything is said and done, the Most High is dealing with his people, which are the Israelites. And when it says Israel, it's talking about national Israel, Israel as a whole, pursuant to Ezekiel 37, the two sticks being brought together and being held in one's hand. That's the gathering of the two kingdoms, which is happening right now. You know, you go to certain, go to camps, you see Jake up in there, Judah in there, Benjamin. You see some of the Latin tribes, some Ephraimites, some Manasseh. You got a lot of Issacharites, especially out in the Midwest and in the West. And you got Gadites. You got Gadites out there and Reubenites that look like Jake, that path for Jake. So the tribes are coming together right now. That's the fulfillment of Ezekiel 37. Anyway, it said, for Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose, meaning ultimately he's going to choose Israel, the house of Israel, and set them in their own. And it ain't talking about the body of believers as Vocab Malone says. And I'm going to prove that. It says, matter of fact, I'll prove it right now. Bear with me for a minute. You know what? I'll come back to that. No big deal. Come back to that. So it says, for Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. The people over there and that in our land are not the people. Now you have a certain number of our people in that land in Demona, Israel, but ain't nobody's talking about them. They're not a threat, even though they're in Israel. They're not a threat. They're not a threat to this world. And there's literally hundreds of thousands of Israelites that are in that land, but they went over there in the late 60s, early 70s. They went to Africa first, then they went to migrated to Israel. So they've been there for we're talking about 4 to 5 generations. So there's people that moved there in the 70s that have gotten old and died, had children, and their children had children, and their children had children. And they also speak Hebrew, but they speak the Hebrew that this guy, what's this guy's name? Ben Yehudi. See, prior to us going to the Blue Letter, we used to use concordance, and we would use the Hebrew English Hebrew dictionary. And I have the book somewhere in the house. But, the Most High, all praises to Yahweh by Shem Yahushai. Not just all praises, with IUIC says all praises. All praises to who? Vulcan, the god of fire? I mean, who? All praises to who? You're going to praise somebody, you're going to praise the name of Yahweh B'Ashem Yahweh Shai. So now when you go to the word Israel, coming back to this word Israel, it's talking about national Israel. That's why I said I'm going to read it in Hebrew and see where it leads back to. It says, and set them in their own land. Like I said, there are Israelites in the land, but they don't believe that the Messiah came. They're speaking the Hebrew that the small hats speak, which is not the true Hebrew. Like I said, they don't believe that the Messiah came, so they're pretty much Old Testament Hebrews. They don't believe in the New Testament, even if they say, "Well, no, no, you don't," because if you believed in the New Testament, you would believe that the Messiah came a little over 2,000 years ago, and the Messiah came already. He's getting ready to come again. And the strangers, now right here, High Priest Ariah, you should teach that the strangers are talking about the other nations shall be joined with them, meaning they're going to have them Edomites and the other nations try to join with us, similar to I'm not going to go to that, but that's during the time of Zerubbabel. That's a whole another subject. I may touch on that, how the nations wanted to join. It's a we follow your God too. So Zerubbabel and the heads that said, "Nah, we building this on our own. You're not a part of this." So that was a physical building of the house of the Most High, the temple, Jerusalem, ultimately. And they wanted to build with it, but like I said, he said, "You can't build with us." So what they did was they made it hard for them to build. So they had to have swords on their side while they were building. And the same thing's happening now, but this time the house that's being built, or the temple, Jerusalem, that's being built, is a spiritual house. It's physical people, but it's a spiritual house. The fact is of us coming together is we represent a brick. So you got guys like Vocab that's trying to say, no, we're part of it too. You know, the Gentiles and the body of believers and all that nonsense, all right? It says, so the strangers, High Priest Ariah taught that that's talking about other nations trying to cleave unto this truth. No, it's talking about the ones of you that look, I woke up more than 30 years ago. There's brothers in GMS that came into this thing, I don't know, 14, 15 years ago. So when they first came in, they came in as strangers. They didn't know that they were Baptist, Methodist, whatever the hell they were, RCC. And they slowly grew into this thing. They watched the videos, then they said, you know what, I'm gonna grow a beard. You know what, I'm gonna stop eating pork. I'm gonna stop eating shrimp. And they grew into this thing and then they became teachers. All right. It says, and the strangers, which are you guys coming in, like I was a stranger, shall be joined with them. Like I joined with the top heads. When I came in, I was like a stranger, cleaving on to them. I had to cleave to them to learn. And they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. So now when the brothers, the strangers at first heard the words, starting from the apostles on down, apostles and the bishops on down to the elders, a lot of them they would actually come out to New York. They don't come out to New York no more. You know why? Because they're full grown. They were cleaving unto us at that time. They don't need to cleave unto us anymore. If they happen to come out, they come out. It's no big deal. Anyway, I'm gonna read this again. I'm sorry. It says, for Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob, talking about Israel, and will yet choose Israel, the Israelites, all 12 tribes, and set them in their own land. This hasn't happened yet. So the people, the small hats over there, they didn't fulfill any goddamn thing. They're not them people. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob, Israel. So now let's go to the commentary, and then I'm gonna read the next verse. It says, Cambridge Bible for schools and colleges. The immediate result of the judgment on Babylon. Now, when they say Babylon, they're talking about ancient pagan Babylon. This is actually talking about the new Babylon, Babylon the Great. And how do we know that? Because when judgment came down on Babylon, ancient Babylon, Israel wasn't around. The only tribes that were around was Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and a few of the tribes from the northern kingdom that went back to Judah. But for the most part, there was the kingdom was severed. You know, go back into the history of Rehoboam and Jeroboam. Rehoboam being Solomon's son, and Jeroboam being an Ephraimite that put himself up as a head. But guess what? It all happened because the Most High wanted it to happen, because the Most High sent the prophet Ahijah to tear his garments up, and it was 12 pieces, and gave him 10, and said, this represents the tribes that you're going to take. So guess what? It wasn't something that Jeroboam came up with. It was the Most High putting the spirit on them to fulfill the prophecy. But he had to be the heavy. So it says, okay, the immediate result of the judgment on Babylon will be, so now we know if it's talking about Israel as a whole nation, Babylon is talking about the second Babylon, America, this place, will be the emancipation of Israel from captivity. Because guess what? We are in this day in our captivity. That's in Baruch. I'm merely paraphrasing. Somebody can put it in there. Will yet choose Israel. Ultimately choose Israel. Rather will again, Isaiah 11, a second time, as formerly in Egypt. So here's a precept right here. And see, you know, I go through these commentaries. You know, some of them they're hit or miss. Some of them they're on point, and some of them they totally off. But when people come up against us and say, "Well, you guys are just making that up," no, we got scholars that say that agree with what we're saying. That say the same thing that we're saying. So how do we make this stuff up? It says, "And the Lord Yahweh shall inherit Judah, his portion in the Holy Land." That hasn't happened yet. And so choose Jerusalem again. It says the strangers. Let's see how they break this down. The sojourners. Right, they're right. The sojourners, the sojourners are the Israelites that when you go, look, when you go in, like this clown, Vocab Malone, he had rolled up on one body in Yahushua. That's when he was going to the different camps. And how did he say that? He said, he was asking about the Edomites. And he said, the guy said, he went off. He said the Edomites are from the Caucasus Mountains, which are actually from the Mount Seir. And Vocab corrected him, no, that's Mount Seir. So he said, well, how can these Europeans be living in Mount Seir? However he said it. This video goes back like almost 3 years ago. But what you got to understand is those nations that are part of what the scholars call the Fertile Crescent, those people scattered to other lands, just like people do that today. People that come that great, uh, how can I call it? The Europeans that came over to America during the turn of the century, it wasn't because the president sat down and said, you know what, let's, America's so great and we're so free, let's let these other nations come in so they can taste our freedom. No, they allowed them to come over here. They were the Mexicans of that time. They were the Mexicans of that time. They used them for cheap labor. And what they did was they had their kids go to colleges, and because they're Edomites, so they assimilated. A lot of them became rich by marrying, a working class Edomite married an heiress to some rich guy, the Vanderbilts. They marry among each other, man. This happened with what made the Bush family rich was, I believe it was Prescott Bush or his father that married into riches. I got to go into that. As a whole other history. We should go into it deep. Another family was the Kennedys. Joe Kennedy, he was a working guy and he married into riches. That's how they became rich. I believe it was either Prescott Bush or his father. I got to go back into the history. He was a tire salesman. I don't know if it was Prescott Bush, the senator, before he became senator, but he married. He came up because he married into what was the Harriman family, if I'm not mistaken. That's old history. We got to go back into that. But a lot of them came up. Oh, this guy Vanderbilt, I believe his name is William Vanderbilt. There's a statue of him at in Manhattan at the Grand Central Station. That big statue right there, that's Vanderbilt. Now you know how Vanderbilt became rich. The dude was a bare knuckle fighter. I forget exactly where it was. They used to be at a river, right? These Edomites, and he could have been a Jake because they said he was knocking everybody out. Anybody he fought, he was cold knocking them out, and then they would do it for money. So he was knocking so many people out that he's goddamn. And then that showed him he rubbed elbows with the rich, and he had money, and he invested it right. He went into boats. He invested in boats and stuff and other things. And then he's talked about to this day. And guess what? That's called generational riches, meaning you pass it down to your children. And you train them, you send them to prep schools and so forth and so on. And then they learn the money. They got to learn the money system. Then they're given the money because they went to the best schools to learn how to manage money. See, Jake, you have somebody, and this happens all the goddamn time. It almost always happens with Jakes. There's a few exceptions. Michael Jordan is one of them. But you have Jakes in the NFL and especially the NBA and in boxing and other sports. They retire with over $100 million, and then they're back to working at McDonald's. Why? And then their children, they're just poor again because you know what? They don't know how to manage money. These Edomites know how to. That's called they leave. The scriptures say they leave their inheritance to their little ones. Somebody could put that in there. But that's Esau. The Most High put the spirit on Esau to know how to deal with money, to understanding generational wealth. Even Floyd talks about that. He always talked about it. He said, I got to do it not for me, but for my children and for my children's children and for my children's children's children. And that never happens, hardly ever happens with Jake, because Jake doesn't know how to manage money. They like blowing money. Anyway, obviously there's spending beyond their means. Now, if you're worth $100 million, how the hell you gonna spend $150 million? Then you're $50 million in the hole, jackass. Jake is not disciplined at all. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant. It says, the sojourner and see, what we do is when you get into these scriptures, right? when you study these scriptures and you look at the world through the eyes of a man that knows the scriptures, you filter through the scriptures, you filter through the spirit, you become wiser. So we see everything. All this shit that's been happening in the news, all this horrific shit, we see right through it. The other oh my goodness, we see right through that shit, man. You're able to see through anything, man. You able to look. When you get into this knowledge, it gets you into other knowledges, man. Like for example, I had an issue with my liver. I was feeling it in my liver, doing the research, and me and Apostle Ramla, we always talk about nutritional things, and even Apostle Gabar, not necessarily Bishop Sakaran. That's why he's a bishop. He'll eat pizzas all day. Anyway, there was a formula that Apostle Ramla gave me, but I listened to it and I didn't do it. And then I saw a doctor. He went into it and he described the same ingredients, and then I confronted Apostle Ramla about it, and I mentioned, and he said, "No, it's the same. That's where I got it from." And I did it, and the guy said, and I'm gonna do a video on it. All right. The guy said, I just did a powerful smoothie, by the way, a super powerful green smoothie. Anyway, the particular smoothie, it takes three ingredients, and I'll do a video. I got to do a video on it. And the guy said, you got to do this for 14 days. I only did it for 1 day. I did it my second time, and I feel 90% better. I feel 90% better. And that goes into reduce, you see in the liver, you have fatty liver disease, but you also have, what is this? What is it? Hepatitis. Now, when you hear somebody having hepatitis, you think who did you have sex with, eating from a dirty plate or whatever. Hepatitis only means the itis and the hepa at the end of the suffix of the hepa, the itis, it just means inflamed, acidic. That's where your sicknesses, the majority of your sicknesses come from the fact that your body is acidic, your organs are acidic. And all that is what is it? Hepatitis is nothing but acidic liver. You either have fat liver, or fat in your liver, or you have hepatitis, was acidic to your liver. So this formula of 3 ingredients, it reverses all that, and I feel it. Just two times I did it. Yesterday I did it in the late morning, early afternoon, and then I did it last night. So that was my second time doing it, in 1 day, inside of 1 day, and I feel 90% better. And I'm positive that I do it for maybe another day or two, I'll feel 100% better, but I'm going to continue to do it. But they're all, the ingredients have to be organic ingredients, which all 3 ingredients, simple ingredients, are organic. And like I said, most I will, and I'll do a video on it, and I'll explain it even further. So it says, back to this lesson, there's lessons within lessons. It said the strangers, the sojourner, which are the Israelites that sojourn among Israel. And then they decide to say, you know what? I'm gonna live in Israel now. So what they got to do is they got to find a plot of land. That's in the law. And then they give you the plot of land. And first of all, they got to say, well, what tribe are you from? I'm from the tribe of Levi, no, tribe of Judah, or whatever, Gad or whatever. So they'll say, okay, so we got to go to the land of Gad. And then we got to get you a plot of land. And then what they'll do is they'll set you up with a plot of land. All right. That's where the small hats got the right of return from, because they have to keep that line going that they're the people. It says the sojourner or protected guests, which are Israelites, here used as in latter Hebrew with the sense of proselyte. Look that word up. So I'm gonna read some of these precepts. So these, Cambridge Bible for schools and colleges, they're on point most of the time. But sometimes they go off, and then you know why they go off. Because if they told the truth about a particular precept, like a controversial precept, they would have to pretty much say that we are those people. And they know it. They do too much studying to not know. It says the sojourn or protected guest, here used as in latter Hebrew with the sense of proselyte, and I'll look that up later. Isaiah 56 verses 3 and 7, Zechariah 2 verse 11, Zechariah 8 verse 21 and 20 to 23. So let me put the cursor on that. It says, so strangers, right? It says Isaiah 56 verse 3. Neither let the sons of strangers that has joined himself to the Yahweh speak, saying, Yahweh has utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree. And that's talking, let me read again. Isaiah 56. And this was talked about, I believe Apostle Rama talked about it in somebody else. Isaiah 56 and 3. It said, neither let the son of the stranger, which is us, that has joined himself to Yahweh. This is the Israelite. You brothers that's been in this thing for 14, 15 years that are coming into this, guess what? You were strangers and you decided to join yourself with the Lord, right? Speak saying, Yahweh has utterly separated me from his people. Meaning, wow, this opens up, there's a whole nother topic right here. What precepts come to my mind? Romans the 11th chapter. Romans the 11th chapter is concerning the Israelite foreigners, which are called Gentiles by the Jews, coming back into the fold, coming back into that original branch, because they became wild branches. Okay, it says, let me read that again. Neither let the sons of the stranger, which are Israelites, that has joined himself to Yahweh, speak saying, Yahweh has utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry branch. Because a eunuch, in the kingdom, there ain't gonna be no eunuchs. If you're a eunuch, the Most High is gonna restore you. All right, and you will no longer be a eunuch. Now, another precept that comes in mind is Ephesians 2. You can start at 9. I think the key point is in 11th verse, where Christians use that to say that the other nations could get in. No, that's talking about Israelites that are far off, coming back into the fold. Next precept, Zechariah 2 verse 11. And many nations shall be joined to Yahweh in that day, and shall be my people. What does that mean? And many nations or Gentiles shall be joined to Yahweh. Who is that talking about? It's talking about Israelites that don't know that they're Israelites. In that day, and shall be my people, meaning Israelites. Who are the Lord's people? Israelites, not the body of believers, not the church, as vocab says. And I will dwell in the middle of you, and you shall know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me to you. The Most High didn't send prophets to the other nations. This is clearly talking about Israel. Zechariah 2 and 11. And many nations right there, you see the word nations, you think of Gentiles, heathens, Greeks, shall be joined to Yahweh in that day. Those are Israelites, and shall be my people. Those are Israelites. Zechariah 8, verse 21. And the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go speedily to pray before the Lord. Those are Israelites. Ain't no Edomites. And to seek Yahweh of hosts. I'm not going to read the rest because it doesn't say that. I got to click on that. So we know that that's talking about Israel. But it seems like, if you don't know, if you're not studied, it seems like it's talking about other nations. That the Most High opened the door for the Most High didn't open up the door for other nations. So let's read this again. Let's recap before we go on. And see these precepts right here. Zechariah, did I read? Rather, will again choose as formerly in Egypt, right? Zechariah 2 verse 12. And Yahweh shall inherit Judah, his portion in a holy land, which is Israel, and shall choose Jerusalem again. All right. This is the, we call it, use the word hermeneutics, interpretation, breakdown, right? Isaiah 14:1. For Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own, land, and the strangers, Israelites, shall be joined. Ariel went off, high priest Ariel went off on that, shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave unto the house of Jacob. We that been in this thing for 25, 30 plus years, you that come in for the last 14, 15 years, you have joined yourself unto us, and others have joined themselves unto you. You are now teachers, elders. Okay, so now let's go to, I'm trying to go to the second verse. Isaiah 14:2. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. Now, the people is talking about these other nations. You're going to find out. And the house of Israel, because now it's no longer the Judah and Jerusalem, or Judah and Israel, or Jacob and Israel. It's Israel now, because they're brought back together. And the house of Yasha'Allah shall possess them in the land of the Lord. What does the word possess mean? And the land of the Lord. The land of the Lord, the headquarters is going to be in what they call Palestine, Jerusalem. And then we're going to have control of over the whole world. For what? The people. This is how we know that these people are talking about Israel. I mean, I'm talking about the other nations. Number one on the list, Esau. It says what? We're going to what? Possess them, the people, in the land of Yahweh. For what? For servants, slaves, and handmaids, slaves, men slaves, and women slaves. And they shall take them captives. You can't, what does captives mean? Whose captive they were? Were we not captives? Not just Esau. We were captive under the Medo-Persians. We were captive, but under the Medo-Persian Empire, the Medes, Cyrus, Darius, you had Israelites in high positions. Zerubbabel was a governor in Judah, so they had positions. You had empires that allow us to live our lives. During the time of Alexander the Greek, which he really wasn't a bad guy to us. He kissed our asses, man. He didn't tax us. Go into the history. He didn't tax us. His teacher was Aristotle. He knew how to read and write Hebrew. He was fascinated by the Israelites. He gave them gifts. He didn't tax them, and he let them keep their laws, statutes, and commandments. Now, when that wicked root, Antiochus Epiphanes, which is spoken of in Daniel the 8th chapter and Daniel 11th chapter, okay, For you guys out there that don't know, Daniel 11 chapter is talking about the 6 Syrian wars. That's it. It ain't talking about no rapture of the kingdom and the Antichrist. It's something that already took place. Daniel chapter 9 already took place. All right. It says servants and handmaids. How you gonna get around servants and handmaids? Men slaves and women slaves. And they shall, the slaves, starting with the Edomites and other nations, take them captives. That's Israel. We're gonna put them into captivity, whose captives they were. And they shall rule over their oppressors. Who's oppressing us right now? This damn devil. So now let's go to the Cambridge Bible for schools and colleges, which are on point on this one. It says, in the people and peoples, it says Isaiah 49, verse 22, thus saith Yahweh the Most High, behold, I will lift up my hand to the Gentiles, which are Israelites, and set up my standard to the people, and they shall bring your sons in their arms, and the daughters shall be carried on their shoulders. So that's these other nations. It goes on to say, shall possess them, serve themselves heirs to them, for the idea of Isaiah 60 verse 10, Isaiah 60 verse 14, Isaiah 61 verse 5, and you really have to read the whole chapter of Isaiah chapter 60 and Isaiah chapter 61. And then Isaiah chapter 49 is another one. Okay, so it says, shall possess them, serve themselves heirs to them. Leviticus 25 verse 46. It says, and you shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them for a possession. They shall be your slaves forever, but over your brothers, the children of Israel, because you had servants. Israelites had other Israelites as servants. Do you know that Israelite men sold their daughters to other Israelite men? It says, brothers, the children of Yasha'Allah, you shall not rule over another with rigor. In other words, you can be hard on them other nations, but you can't be hard on an Israelite that's a servant. And then a male servant if you purchase a servant from Israel, an Israelite man purchased a servant from another Israelite daughter, guess what? That man could do whatever the hell he wants. He can have sex with the woman, have babies with the woman, whether she wants it or not. That's rape right there. That's a whole nother subject for the idea of Isaiah 60 verse 10. Like I said, you should read the whole Isaiah 60 and Isaiah 60, 61 and 61. So let's pick these out. And then I'll probably skim, see what this is all about. Anyway, it says Isaiah 60 verse 10. And the sons of strangers shall build up your walls. The strangers talking about the other nations. And their kings shall minister to you as slavery. For in my wrath I smote you, which are the Israelites, but in my favor have I had mercy on you. And how is he showing our mercy? Them people that put you in slavery, you get to put them in slavery. This is why Esau is losing sleep over the one West Israelites. And the focus, vocab's focus is not on all Israel. He has no problem with the Israel of God, the IOG, because they said Gentiles can make it. He has no real problem. He has no problem with GOCC because they say Edomites and other nations can make it. They could be equal Well, now they changed their tune. They're not equal, but they're not going to go into slavery, whatever the nonsense. He doesn't make videos on them. You know who he goes after? He goes after the One Westers, the former One Westers, and the top groups that he goes after. He goes after number one GMS, which he even says good things about us because these guys they're cool and they discuss stuff, you know. But he goes after GMS, IUIC, ISUPK, and then Sakari. Those are the main ones that he goes after. And Sakari's up there in the ranks because the leader of Sakari, Al-Azhar, came up under GMS. Okay? That's Han. That's basically Han, leaving the Shaolin Temple and doing his own thing. Same thing with Bishop Nathaniel. Bishop Nathaniel, he even dresses like Han, man. That dude is Han, man. From Enter the Dragon. You notice they have those guys with the white suits. They all got the same suits and they punching in the air, ain't kicking, just punching. Who. Y'all remember, right? Well, that's the same thing with Bishop Nathaniel. He got a bunch of guys that all dress the same and they're all zombies. And I know you hate when I call you zombies, but guess what? Look up the word zombies. It describes you guys to a T. It's ISUPK, bunch of zombies. It says, let me read that again. Isaiah 60, verse 10. And the sons of strangers, which are other nations, in this case, shall build. When you come across the word strangers, depending on the context, it could be talking about other nations or it could be talking about Israelites. When you jump back to the first verse of Isaiah 14, it says strangers, and then it says sojourners, which are Israelites. The law of the strangers, where they get a plot of land, are Israelites. And the sons of strangers, the other nations, starting with Esau, shall build up your walls. And are they going to get paid? No, they're going to be slaves. We're going to put them in slave quarters, in pits, and we're going to feed them just enough to keep them alive. That's their life. They're going to eat, they're going to sleep, and they're going to work. And that's what you did to us. So now it's your turn. It says, and the sons of strangers shall build up your walls, and their kings shall minister to you, because they're not going to be kings anymore. Psalms Psalms 149, really the whole chapter, which is a short chapter, mainly the 5th verse on down. It says, and their kings shall minister slaves to you, the Israelites, for in my wrath I have smote you, the Israelites, but in my favor have I had mercy on you. Next precept, 14 verse, Isaiah 65 verse 14. The sons also that have afflicted you shall come bending to you, and all bending, literally bending, and all they that despise you, hated us, shall bow themselves down at the soles of your feet, and they shall call you the city of the Lord, Yahweh, which is Jerusalem. And Jerusalem means what? City of peace. The Zion means the monument of the Holy One of Israel. Isaiah 61 verse 5. And strangers, the other nations, starting with Esau, shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the aliens, other nations, shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. So now, the plowman, what comes to mind? Amos. I'll leave you with this one. Amos. Amos 9. And the rebuilding of Israel is going to start with the house of David. The restoration of Yasha'Allah. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen and close up the breaches thereof, and I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old, meaning bring it back in order. That the Israelites may possess, starting with the house of David, may possess the remnant of Edom. Now, Edom right here is talking about the land before it's talking about the people, even though we're going to possess them. When you click on the word Edom, it means a people, but it also means the land. There's a land called the land of Edom. Right now, presently, America's spiritual name is really the land of Edom. That's in Isaiah 34. It's also known as Egypt and Sodom. It said that they may possess the remnant of Edom and of all the heathen lands which are called by my name, saith Yahweh, that doeth this. It said, behold, the days come when the kingdom comes, saith Yahweh, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper. This is one of my favorite precepts. That the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes, him that soweth seed, and the mountain shall drop sweet wine, and all the hills shall melt. And I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel, meaning they're going to take them, the Most High going to take you out of captivity, but he's going to put somebody under you. And they shall build the waste cities. We just read that in Isaiah, Isaiah 60, verse 14, and inhabit them. And how are we going to build the cities? With our slaves, starting with Esau and the other nations. And they shall plant vineyards and drink the wine. And now when it says plant vineyards, we're not going to plant anything. They're going to plant it and we're going to drink the wine from it. Therefore, they shall also make gardens and eat the fruit of them, meaning the kingdom of heaven is going to be on earth. As it is in heaven, also it shall be on earth. Lord's Prayer. And I will plant them upon their land, and they shall no more be pulled up out of their land, which I have given them, saith the Lord. So we're not as a people in the land, because you got the small hats over there. They got to get blasted the hell out of before we go back in there, and along with Babylon the Great. So coming back to the 13th verse, Amos 9, verse 13, behold, the days come and saith Yahweh, that the plowman, we are the plowman, we out there in the field Negroes, shall overtake the reaper. We also reap, but who reaps the benefits? Esau, the last oppressor over us are Esau, are the Edomites. So they're going to be the first one that go into captivity. So it said the plowman, which is the slave, that the field Negro, shall overtake the reaper. The reaper is Esau. We're going to take them. The saints of the Most High the saints shall take the kingdom and possess it forever and ever. It shall not be left under other people. And the treader of grapes, you got to take grapes, you got to tread it to get the liquid coming, the blood coming out of it to make wine. We're not going to be doing that. We're going to have slaves doing that, probably women doing that. They're going to get barefooted. However they're going to do it, because everything going back to the ancient way, coupled with spiritual power. We're going to be living like the ancient way, but we're going to have spiritual power. Give you a perfect example. Wakanda. Guess what? What's Wakanda all about? Let me go to that. Wakanda. Wakanda does exist. It's in the land of Israel, but the people got to come back to activate Wakanda. All right, Wakanda. Okay, Wakanda meaning. Let's look this up. He's in the spiritual realm, so he's good. He's good. When he come back as an Israelite. So don't worry about him. The ancestors of the Omaha and Ponca believed that there was a supreme being whom, because these were Israelites. What made Africa great? Israelites. all that light has come out of the west coast of Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, the Congo, whom they called Wakanda. They did not know where he was. Wait a minute. Nor did they understand to say how he existed. Wakanda means the mysteries. How the Oscar-winning Coke, whatever the hell. What is Wakanda in real life? What does Wakanda is? Where is Wakanda meant to be? Wakanda meaning, pop culture. Okay, let's see what this one says. Let's see what this one says. And I believe it was Captain America that got his power from Wakanda. Okay, Wakanda. What does Wakanda mean? Wakanda is a fictional African country home to the Marvel comic superhero, the Black Panther. I said the Black Panther was memorably portrayed by the late Chadwick Boseman in the hugely successful 2018 film adaptation of the same name. The movie Black Panther popularized a salute known as Wakanda Forever as a gesture of Black excellence around the world. Let me read a little bit more. Because there is a Wakanda, and the real name of Wakanda is Israel. When the Most High sent his people back, Wakanda first appeared in issue 52 of the Marvel comic book Fantastic Four, published on July of 1966. So this guy, what's the dude that died? Stan Lee. He of Russian descent, but we believe he could be a Jake. You know, he had that mind, you know, creative mind. In the comic, the Fantastic Four are invited to the small imaginary African country of Wakanda, which boasts incredibly advanced technology. That's our kingdom, thanks to a powerful fictional metal known as Vibranium, king of Wakanda, and with the real name of T'Challa, the superhero Black Panther defeats each member of the Fantastic Four using his physical and technological prowess. So our kingdom is going to be a physical kingdom, but it's going to be on a high technical, spiritual level. We're going to be changed. All right. And the plans, and in closing, Esau's plans are not going to come to fruition. They're going to charagma a lot of people, but they ain't going to do it to us. And then the destruction comes. This is right around the corner, man. This man is done. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom.